It has been 2 years since I last went through the best battling lords in Warhammer 3. In that time we've had some heavy hitters join the roster, so I think it's about time for a refresh. And if you want a refreshing way to enjoy these videos with no ads, then become a channel member. Just $1 a month for all the same videos with none of the ads. Now, onto the list. In 10th place we have Grimgor Ironhide. There's not much to say when explaining what makes Grimgor so powerful in battle. He's a pretty straightforward melee battling lord and is so absolutely cracked at it that I don't even mind that he lacks any real spells or abilities. Once he's in melee, he is a meat grinder, the likes of which have only been seen in Germa's House of Horrors. Technically, he does have a few unit buffs and enemy debuffs, but for the most part, he's all about the melee. Now, I will accept he is pretty slow with no shield and is a bit of a chunk. If he can't get into melee fast, he is pretty vulnerable to being overwhelmed by focused fire from guns. However, if he can make contact, there are very few who hit harder. Infantry, large or enemy lords and heroes, it's all the same outcome. Grimgor with a bloody axe and some very scared looking enemies. In 9th place we have Malagor the Dark Omen. I'm a recent addition to the Malagor fan club, but I find his absurd battle strategy to be too funny to leave out of a list like this. There are 3 prongs to what make him so strong. Firstly is his incredible ability to reduce enemy leadership. When he combines various skills and traits, he can reduce nearby enemy leadership by nearly 30, and granted 20 of that is for all units in the same province, so he doesn't even have to get close for that. Next, his unending Flock of Doom deals continuous damage to anything nearby, and whilst it's not the most damage, it's constant, it's free, and it's direct damage, so ignores armor and is on a per entity basis. That means the more entities there are, the more damage it deals. Technically, he does need to be in melee to activate this, which I swear he didn't used to be, but even so, it is an astronomical amount of damage, even if you just send him to fight some zombies in the middle of an enemy army. Add on his mixed lore of magic with access to Flock of Doom and he can be dealing an absurd amount of damage to enemies with no real way for them to counter it. Prong 3 is his ability to fly, which makes getting into a close proximity to enemies into child's play. Granted, this is also his source of weakness, as flight, especially stationary flight, makes him one of the easiest targets for ranged units in the game. If you don't keep him moving and cheese away all of your enemy's ammo, he will get run over in moments. However, if you can manage this most basic of tasks, he is pretty much unstoppable. He does, however, need an army to keep enemies still and hold ground so he doesn't automatically break, but aside from that, he can do most of the work himself. If you wanted to be really cheesy, you could even use Doom and Darkness to insta-break most lesser units, which can be pretty funny. I could go on because this guy has some of the dumbest balance in the game, but he is a total blast once he gets going, and is still somehow this low down the list. In 8th place we have Malus Darkblade. Malus is pretty much a legal requirement on lists talking about the strongest lords in battle. He is one of the greatest one-man armies the game has ever seen, and even with various nerfs over the years, he still remains incredibly powerful in combat. He's another basic melee battler, and whilst his base form may be a touch weaker than Grimgor in most areas, it's his demonic power that really takes him up to the next level. Once he starts to run out of HP, at which point he'll likely have racked up plenty of damage already, he can trigger his transformation into Sarkhan, which gives him a whole new health bar, enhanced stats, and some powerful new abilities. These combined with his Warp Sword of Cain can keep him alive for an exceptionally long time, all while allowing him to deal an ungodly amount of damage. Again, all of this is limited to melee, so for sure he can be picked apart from range, but even on his spiked mount, he's a relatively small hitbox, so once he gets fighting, it's not really a major factor. Speaking of the mount, it gives him plenty of speed, so getting into melee in a rush will be no problem at all. The only downsides to Malus are the fact he's just the littlest bit straightforward. No spells just inherently make him weaker when used at his full potential. Make no mistake, he is an absolute powerhouse in the hands of a total novice, but sadly he is simply outclassed by others with more power, even if it is a little bit harder to wield. In 7th place we have Astragoth Ironhand. Now whilst he may not be quite as strong as Grimgor or Malus in melee, he's no slouch either. Very powerful melee fighter with tons of damage and excellent defense, plus magical fire and armor piercing damage so he can cut through basically anything he comes across. And as a last bonus, he's also damn fast and even has some decent charge bonus for a little added impact once he hits melee. On top of all of this, he has access to a mixed lore of fire and Hashut, which is one hell of a combination. Ludicrous amounts of damage potential and options for both unarmored and armored targets. He's the first of a number of hybrid lords you're going to see today, and he sets the bar pretty damn high. He really doesn't have any major weaknesses outside of a lack of mounts to make him even better. But in this base form, with just his starting stats and spells, he is still a major force to be reckoned with. In 6th place we have Teclis. Spoilers for the rest of the list, but Teclis is the only pure spellcaster making an appearance. Normally I'd say that just casting spells isn't enough to get you a spot, but honestly, I can't deny just how good he is any longer. He may be a pure spellcaster, and even once he's on his endgame mount, he's only passable in melee at best. But this guy can get such an insane amount of value from magic that it cannot be understated. His spellbook features a totally unique mix of spells from various lores. He has damage, augments, hexes, regen, and anything else you need, so scores a lot of points for versatility. On top of this, an underrated aspect is the number of passives he can pick up. These are minor effects whenever he's casting a spell, but you can stack every single one of them at the same time, and all of a sudden, you are getting a lot of bonuses at once. Then I have to talk about his skill tree and what it does for his magic. I won't go through every single skill one by one, but we're talking more winds of magic, cheaper spells, more reliable overcasts, and even bound uses of Fiery Convocation, which is extremely strong for even more damage. Teclis will never win a battle by himself because he needs someone to actually do the dirty work for him. But his magical power is practically unrivaled, and if you squeeze every last drop of value out of him, he can be extraordinary. In 5th place we have Archaon the Everchosen. Yet another battling caster lord, and Archaon is absolutely one of the best. Underrated aspect first, his size. Even in the endgame, he's only riding a horse, so has an extremely tiny hitbox, making him very difficult to focus down, either with range or surrounding in melee. Yep, you heard it here first, gamers. Size, it isn't everything. That said, he does have a pretty massive cock. Melee-wise, he's outstanding. Fantastic melee stats and incredibly vicious damage with armor piercing, flaming, and magical, so he can take on anything. Add on a shield, great defense, and very high armor, and he's also basically unkillable. On that horse I mentioned gives him ludicrously high speed, meaning basically nothing can outrun him. On top of all of this, he has access to a mix of the laws of metal, fire, and death. He takes some of the best spells from each to make a custom lore full of high damage and some decent utility. Toss in a few abilities to enhance his powers and those of allies even further, and he is a fitting candidate for the Horseman of Death straight from the Book of Revelation. Where's Ichabod Crane when you need him? The point I'm getting at is, he is exceptional in every aspect of his game, a devastating fighter that can catch anything he sets his sights on and rain down magical pain whilst he's at it. In 4th place we have Yuan Bo. All of the lords from Cathay are extremely strong, but Yuan stands just a head above the rest in every category. Firstly, melee power. He is an outstanding battler with excellent melee stats and armor-piercing damage. Add on a bonus versus infantry and magical damage and he can chew through just about anything. He's also exceedingly tough with strong defense and excellent armor, especially for one so small and quick. Next, he has a mixed lore of magic with plenty of damage alongside utility to maintain harmony. He really does pick some of the best spells from the lores he has access to, so you can't go wrong no matter what you are casting. Of course, this also means a number of passives, and whilst it's not quite as many as Teclis, he's no slouch either. And of course, we have to mention the Emperor's Executioner ability, allowing him to execute enemy lords and heroes once they drop below 20% HP. Depending on who and what you use this against, this can instantly be dealing thousands of damage, so is a damn powerful tool to have. Oh, and he can also transform into a dragon for even more melee power and maneuverability. Yeah, it's technically a larger hitbox and all, but isn't he so majestic? As I said, all three of the Celestial Children can do excellent work in combat. Yuan Bo is simply the cream of the Emperor's crop. In 3rd place we have Count Noctilus. It's pretty funny how absolutely dog-ass both vampire factions are, but how absurdly broken some of their lords can be. I guess when your faction sucks, you at least need a strong leader, and the Count is one of the best. To get the obvious out of the way, yeah, the Invocation of the Heck is one of the strongest spells in the entire game. Healing and resurrecting dead allies is simply insanity, but aside from this, he also has some strong damage and utility, so can bring a lot of magical value to his battles. In melee, he's again fantastic with strong damage and defense, making him a real persistent thorn in the side of whatever you send him against. However, once he gets on a Necrofex mount, he steps it up quite a few notches. He may lose a touch of his survivability in exchange for his size, but he is now a devastating hybrid weapons monster. He's still excellent in melee, though certainly a little bit more vulnerable. However, he now also is a cannon class artillery piece. Normally, in my opinion, cannons kinda suck due to the whole line of sight issue, but when you're a giant with a literal arm cannon, it really doesn't matter as much. He can rack up tons of value from the back lines with this absurd range before coming in to clean up what's left, all whilst bringing tons of value with his magic. In 2nd place we have Kugath Plaguefather. Someone crank the Whitney Houston because Kugath is every woman. And by that I of course mean, he can do pretty much anything you would ask for from a lord in combat. First off, melee power is excellent despite what you'd expect from him lounging around all day. Great melee stats and fantastic damage allow him to rack up value in no time, especially against clumps. He's also nigh on impossible to take down with frankly absurd health that only the most focused and missile focusers can even touch. Next, he's also an artillery piece. He may be essentially yeeting Nurglings across the map, but they do a surprising amount of damage and have armor-piercing explosions. Absurd range, hefty ammo reserves, and a curved firing arc mean he can sit in the back, peppering for a very long time if he chooses to. As well as all this, he also has access to the Lore of Nurgle, and whilst it's for sure not the best in the game, it's not half bad with plenty of damage, regeneration, and of course utility. And if we really want to cover everything, he has a bunch of abilities for even more utility, summons, and more. He can really do it all, and normally this would mean at least one area feels lacking, but he simply doesn't. He does it all and does it damn well, so is well deserving of a place on this list. And in first place, in a controversial pick, Manfred von Carstein. Normally when I'm picking the best vampire lords in battle, I always ping pong between Manfred and Vlad. Today, I'm going to give one to the Ball Kings out there, because whilst Manfred may not have hair alongside the raw melee power of Vlad, he has something that is arguably even more important: versatility. Manny is in a league of his own with access to 2 full laws of magic with both death and vampires at his fingertips. Granted, death is kinda mid, but still having 12 spells to choose from is pretty cracked no matter which way you spin it. He has insane levels of utility and damage potential, especially with his Sword of Unholy Power, essentially granting him infinite wins as long as he's in melee. Speaking of which, in his final form on a zombie dragon, he's aight. I kid, he's definitely better than aight, but compared to some of the others we've seen today, he's decidedly on the lower end of outstanding. Still, great melee stats and high damage, spell a quick doom for whatever he's battling, just slightly vulnerable to being focused with that less than incredible armor and large size. Still, Manfred is one of the most powerful lords in the entire game with those spells alone. He deserves to be here, if for no other reason than it's an extremely badass gimmick, and of course, my undead bias. But who do you think is the best battling lord in Total War Warhammer 3? Is there someone else on the list, or someone who didn't even make the cut? Let me know in the comments below, like, subscribe, and if you want more Warhammer 3 ranking videos, then check out this one, all about the best campaigns for every faction.